Well, Happy New Year, and here we are with the Lake Superior State University 2021 Banished Words. We'll discuss them one by one, and then a list of 15 extra words, or wait, it's 14 extra words that Scott, Elizabeth, and I came up with that we feel should be added to the list that weren't added to the list of the top 10 words that should be banished. And our first word is... I know, right?
I first encountered that in a Dave Eggers book a couple of years ago, and I just thought it was something unique to the character. And then I started hearing it everywhere. And I like the fact that you punctuated it correctly. I mean, most people text it without punctuation, or they say I, comma, no, etc. But yeah, I would like that one to go because it's useless.
Number 9 on the list, sus.
I didn't know that one until my neighbor sent it in a text, and he said, "If you don't know what that is, ask your kid." And I guess it came from the gaming world, but his 12-year-old uses it all the time. I've never heard my son use it, but he does know that it means suspect.
Or suspicious character, yeah, a word from the
Right.
gaming community. And is it really that much harder to say suspect? I think not.
I have to admit, it must be my age, but I had to look this up when it made it to the list.
For sure. Karen. I have things to say about Karen. I've been called Karen, which is why I have a picture of me behind there. And I think it just got to be really anybody who was middle-aged and a woman who stated an opinion about something. So it lost its original intent of somebody who was overprivileged and calling somebody out and being a total racist jerk. And now it just got to be everything. For example, I was called Karen when I said in a tweet or something that restaurants shouldn't have PDF menus to download anymore. And they're like, okay, Karen. I'm like, now that wasn't an okay, Karen situation.
I've been called a Karen by my son, and and of course, okay, Boomer is one that I get from him too. But I actually kind of feel sorry for the nice people that are actually named Karen that have to endure this.
Agree. Unprecedented. This marks the second time the word unprecedented has been on the Lake Superior State University list, which is in itself unprecedented.
Oh, I was going to make that joke.
I just feel like there were so many uses for this word in general that the fact that it's now become associated with sort of the 2020 saga is grounds for it to be dismissed.
Pivot. I heard this way too much this year. I was actually in a student in a session, and about midway point, the instructor said, usually at this point, I have a slide and it's called Pivot. It's about how making business pivots is. She says, I'm not going to even cover it. We need a new word. I can't say this anymore. And this was June.
Well, I feel like we talked about this word in particular, at about that time, maybe even May of this last year, which we can now say since we're in 2021. And I believe your replacement for this word, Laura, was rotate.
Or swivel,
Or swivel. I love swivel.
Rotate, but I think in most uses, like, I started hearing it in new business pitches and things like that. They were talking about adapting, revolving, not talking about pivoting. I mean, it's just like rotating is not really what you do when you're changing your business model.
That's true.
Okay, fine. You can swivel away from something, but here's another thing about pivot that gets on my nerves. It's a weird word to say, and after you say it a few times, you don't want to say it anymore. Like pivot, pivot, pivot. It just, no, it doesn't feel good on the tongue.
You sound like a frog.
Right. It doesn't have a good mouthfeel. In these uncertain times.
No times have ever been certain.
It's called free will.
In an abundance of caution?
When I get emails saying that they're exercising an abundance of caution and they tell me that this particular business is still open when the type of business shouldn't be open, that's not really an abundance of caution. That's just a cliche.
We're all in this together.
Elizabeth, this is
I
yours.
just can't even. I just can't even bear to hear it anymore. We're not, as I've discussed at length, at nauseum for anyone. We're not all in this together. We're all experiencing this on our own.
Social distancing. Now, I don't like this phrase for a lot of reasons. Number one is it's not very clear. I teach a segment on proxemics and body language, and social distance is between 4 to 6 feet. And why couldn't we just say instead of social distancing, keep 6 feet away from each other?
Right. And I think of social distancing. I think of that character in the Simon and Garfunkel song who, I am a rock, where he doesn't come out of his room and he reads poetry and, amidst the silent shroud of freshly fallen snow or whatever and all that. That's what I think of social distancing is that it's people, they scare me, sort of thing.
So
Well,
you
but
think
it's not a social distance anyway. Social distancing would mean that we're not like talking to each other.
Right.
It's more like a physical distance. We physically want you to
Right.
remain 6 feet away from each other.
And the first on the list is COVID-19. Now, while I applaud that people don't want to hear about it anymore, we really have a lot of work to do where we will need to discuss COVID-19 and all of its variants like Rona, Corona, all of it. So while I applaud that people don't want to hear about it, wishing doesn't make it so, and we need to talk about it quite a bit more.
Well, I prefer, using this name to when people were just using coronavirus to describe this particular coronavirus, because it's not accurate to say that coronavirus is this transmissible or is this lethal and all that, because there's a whole bunch of coronaviruses, like 4 different forms of the common cold are coronaviruses. So that's not accurate, or it's not helpful.
Yeah, there's a lot of old coronaviruses. But
my problem with the naming scheme is that it's coronavirus, CO is coronavirus is VI, D is December. What if there had, and 19 is 2019, what if there had been 2 coronaviruses in 2019, or had been 2 in December or something like that? I just from a taxonomic standpoint, this doesn't seem like it's very useful.
Well, but wouldn't the D have been replaced with some other letter then?
Well, not if there were 2 in December, is what I was saying.
Oh, in December. Got it.
And just like maybe this is a grammar girl thing, but shouldn't it be capital C, lowercase o, capital B, lowercase I, capital D?
You want camel case on COVID-19. And I'll bet that you don't want the hyphen either, because as time goes on, as we know in taxonomy and technology, hyphens tend to drop over time.
Houseboat.
Automobile, television, metadata. It all was hyphenated when it began. Hyphens go away over time. All right, those were the list of the top 10 that Lake Superior State University said that we need to banish for 2021. But we all believe too, and I asked some people on LinkedIn, that there's some stuff missing from this list. So what is missing from the list? And for first, we had a response from John Rummery. Hi, John. Who said, "You're on mute."
100%. I think I spend half of every meeting telling someone they're on mute, and I don't want to say it anymore.
What do we say instead of "you're on mute"?
I can't hear you. I don't know.
Spank that mute button.
Yeah.
Number 2 also comes from John Rummery. Fake news.
Yeah.
Well,
Shouldn't that have been in 2019 or 2018? I feel like this, I mean, we can get rid of it now, but it feels like this should have been on the list for multiple years now.
I agree.
Red state, blue state, also from Mr. John Rummery.
Yeah, that's always been way too binary for me, because I mean, you have presidential elections and the governors and the state houses plus the U.S. and the Senate and House, and it can be a very motley mix of things like that. So it's just that, are you a red state if you voted for GOP for president and voted for a Democratic governor. What kind of state are you?
Fun fact about red state, blue state, it's only come into our vocabulary recently with the advent of color television and color television news. So we never even had this until color commentary literally started taking place on the elections.
Yeah, it was. I think it was rooted in coverage from ABC. I don't remember which election, but a design decision by a graphic design intern, and here we are.
Hoax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd get rid of that one. I mean, there are things that are hoaxes. I think that hoaxes lacks too much nuance because there can be things that are true or have elements of truth, even if they're intentionally written to mislead. So hoax is kind of like a too broad a term or too final a term, I think, in most in a gray world.
Trump. I put this one on the list because even if you play cards, you can't even bear to say this anymore. And I think we all know that this is just a word that is going to go away. No one wants it. No one wants to say it.
Yeah, if only somebody would invent a thesaurus so we could find a different word to use in these cases.
Here's a word that I put on the list, WFH. It means work from home, but I've been working out of my home office for over 20 years right now. And it's not really WFH because a lot of times I'm not actually working from home. I'm out elsewhere. I'm at the library.
Yeah.
I am at the beach. It is remote work. And also making an acronym out of this, every time I see it, I see WTF every single time.
Well, I had a client that their preferred acronym was WAH, working at home. And the first couple times I saw it, I was looking on their Microsoft network presence, and I would see sick today, WAH, and I didn't realize it meant working at home. I thought they were going wah because they were sick.
Bottom line, enough with the acronyms.
Well, I also feel like it starts to degrade, though, people like us, Laura and Scott, that, we have worked remote for a long time. So I think it also sort of degrades that work can be done from home in some ways.
Right. I prefer the term remote work. Mm-hmm. If there's a better term, I'd like to hear it. This one comes courtesy of Greg Outerslice. And that's an excellent question.
It's a space filler, right? It's while you're gathering your thoughts.
Yeah.
Filling the time.
What's particularly galling is when people say that's an excellent question after someone asks a really stupid question. And yes, there are such things as stupid questions.
Somebody on a training session, somebody asked me if they could ask a stupid question. And I said, the only stupid questions are the ones that I ask.
Somebody asked me if they could ask a stupid question, and I said, you just did. This one comes courtesy of Daniel Murphy from my LinkedIn feed, and that is, with that being said. I agree with you, Daniel. This one needs to be on the list.
Yeah, that needs to go with at the end of the day.
Elizabeth offered this one.
Everything has become Zoom. This has become a replacement. It's like the Kleenex of the video conferencing world. It's like we found the shortest, I guess Teams even has more letters than this. We just decided that everything's a Zoom now. And I've noticed that especially people who haven't worked with video conferences for a long time in their past are using this as just a let's Zoom. And then you get like a Google Meet invite. And you're like, well, that's actually not a Zoom. We're just video conferencing. Let's just go back to calling it what it is, a video conference.
Well,
whatever.
I don't really have a sense about how Zoom, the company, feels about this, because one of the things that was very different about Google is that they embraced people using their company name as a verb, unlike Xerox.
Mhm.
which they fought pretty hard against people using Xerox as a verb because that genericized their company name.
And Coke too. For a fizzy beverage that is brown with a lot of caffeine in it. If you know, unless it was a Coca-Cola brand, they didn't want anybody else calling that fizzy brown beverage with lots of caffeine in it Coke. So,
Well, there are legal reasons, though, right? I mean, the legal reasons are it deteriorates your ability to trademark.
I like the word Zoom. I'm going to keep it, and I tend to use it generically too, whether I'm meeting in Google Hangouts or Microsoft Meet or any of the other. It's still Zoom.
I don't know. I guess it's my branding background. I can't do it. Either call it what it is or use the generic term for it. I'm keeping it on my list.
Number 10, also offered by Scott. It's in our DNA.
My suggestion is that if a company is going to claim that something is in their DNA, that they need to send me their gene sequences in the RFP response.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I riffed on Scott with this one, going off of DNA, when people tell me that my brain is hardwired to do something or that I am fundamentally hardwired. I'm like, I have no wires up here. There are no wires. I have no wires whatsoever. None. Don't tell me that I'm hardwired to do something.
Yeah, that can go.
Yeah.
Number 11, cavemen ancestors. I've heard that a lot this year. Well, our cavemen ancestors did this. We have a caveman diet. I'm like, were there any women involved in the creation and evolution of humankind whatsoever? No, there weren't. It's all cavemen. There are no cave women whatsoever. Somehow we managed to get here without women. This is a sexist term and it needs to go away.
Agreed.
The science is clear. Is it though?
Right. It's murky, and the science. It's just like people that use that seem to be cherry picking something they read maybe in a scientific journal or maybe in a tweet. And no, it's not. The science is clear, and there's going to be reports that are findings that are going to contradict each other, and that is science. That is scientific, method published, and maybe getting different results. That's fine. But no, it's like saying the science is clear, and when you're retweeting something that fits your narrative, that's got to go.
Yeah, I know what you're going through.
What really resonated with me was, and I actually wrote a post about this. I saw that a young man, a teenager, it looked like he was in high school at the grocery store, was like really having difficulty with the way things were in March, and he goes, "Is this how it ends for me? It can't be how it ends." And it's just like that's not like normal behavior. And I said, no, it's really easy for people, an adult, to tell a young person what they're going through. It's like you have no idea what this is like. The things that have been stolen from their youth. That's something that I didn't have to face, when I was that age, and I don't have like pre-existing conditions and things like that. I don't have financial stress, and so it's really hard for me to say that I know what somebody else is going through, and I don't know.
You can be empathetic to what someone's going through, but it's pretty pompous to say you know what they're going through.
Going viral.
Well, first of all, why did we choose going viral and not going bacterial or going fungal or something like that? But this seems kind of like really bad to say that something's going viral, because I mean, it's word of mouth, when it spreads. Well, it's not technically word of mouth, but it's the same concept that people share things with other people, and they share with their two friends, et cetera, et cetera. But I just don't know if going viral is like an appropriate term to be using anymore, if it ever was.
I think we can blame this one on Scott, what was his name? Seth Godin, who wrote about sneezing and stuff like 20 years ago or something. And you're a super spreader. I think I don't know. I kind of think that this is a Seth Godin thing where you're sneezing on people and then some people are big sneezers and some people just catch stuff. I don't know. He made some kind of point, as he does. That's
I didn't realize where that came from. Okay. Let's
Yeah.
work it out.
I think so. Don't know. Virtual.
So apparently we're just all doing nothing. We're imagining it.
Well, I think that, I mean, the minute that people put virtual in front of something like, learning or meetings or conferences, they're dismissing it as, not, like you said, not being real. And I think that we really need to get away from that. A web conference or a phone conference is a conference. If you have 3 people or more on there, that's a conference. It's valuable. You get input. There are advantages to having people in the same conference room and things like that. But the fact that we used to do these things via conference bridges on a phone, nobody ever called them virtual then. And there's something about the fact that we're doing it over video conferencing now. People started calling it virtual, and I don't like that. I don't like that virtual learning, is thought of as being less helpful than in-person learning. Some cases that is true, but I think to just paint everything with a broad brush with virtual, I think that diminishes its value or perception of the value.
I do online training and on-camera training, and I don't do virtual training. It's real. When I train people, it's not virtual. I am really training them.
Right. I agree.
See you virtual.
Yeah. Kick it to the curb.
Sesh.
Oh, this came from within my household. I've been told not to use this word. And I picked it up from a friend who always referred to when my son and his son would game together. He'd say, all right, he'd tell my son and he was going home, good sesh, guys. And I say it when I'm walking the dog if there was no problems with the dog walk. And so my wife has asked me not to say that. So here we are.
Well, that's our wrap up. Our 15 words, the Lake Superior State University's list of 10 words. What words need to be included that were not included? See ya.
Yeah.
Hey.